Okay, so here are the solutions for the completing the square homework. So we're going to kind of go in increase in difficulty like we did in the video. So the first one, we just separate the x terms from the constant term. I'm going to go ahead and move this to the other side. So negative 17 gets to the other side, becomes plus 17. Okay. So then we take 8 divided by 2 squared, which is 4 squared, which is 16. So we add 16, add 16. You can combine these or make this into a complete square. X plus 4 is that number right there. Squared is equal to 33. Okay, that's it. We're not solving for the zeros. If we did, we'd take the square root of 33 plus or minus the square root of 33. And then we'd have the square root of this, which would be x plus 4. But that's not what we're doing. This is completing the square. Okay, next one, x squared plus 12x. Move the other stuff to the other side, negative 15. So you got 12 divided by 2 squared. That's 6 squared, 36. So we're going to add 36. Add 36. So we get x plus 6, quantity squared is equal to 21. Okay. Number 3. So we get x squared minus 7x minus 7. Okay, so I was going to say, move that to the other side first. So that equals 7. So we have negative 7 divided by 2, quantity squared. So when we square the negative, we get positive. 7 squared is 49, 2 squared is 4. So we add 49 over 4 to both sides. And then this is going to be just x, and then we take this number here, x minus 7 halves squared. And on this side we have to, I just realized this is a fourth and 4 in the denominator, 7. So we'd convert this to fourths, so you'd have 28 fourths. 4 times 7 is 28, plus 49 fourths. So 28 plus 49, that's 60, 77 fourths. Okay, now the next one we have this constant in front of x squared. So what we would do is we'd factor out the 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, so we just get x squared. Negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4. We leave space for the parenthesis, move the 11, negative 11 to the other side and make it positive. We take negative 4, divide by 2, square it, which is negative 2, squared, which is 4. So we add 4. But what we're really doing is 3 times 4, which is 12. So we're going to add 12 to both sides. Here, 3 times 4 is 12. 12 is just by itself. And then you can collapse that to a perfect square. So it's x, use this number, negative 2 squared is equal to 23. That's all we need to do for this one. Okay. Next one, I have a 5 in front of the x squared. So you get 5 times x squared. Divide this by 5. You get 3. Leave space. Move positive 2 to the other side. It becomes negative 2. Take the coefficient 3. Divide by 2. Square it. Now you can't simplify that, so you just leave it as 3/2, so that's 9/4. So we add 9/4 here. But what we're doing is 5 times 9/4. So 5 times 9 is 45, so we get 45/4. So we've added 45/4. We got to do it over here. 45/4. Now this can be rewritten as a perfect 5 times the perfect square. This is the number we use, 3/2 squared. And over here we have -2, that's -8/4. So we need to do it in terms of fourths. So -8/4 plus 45/4. So 45 minus 8 is 37. 37/4. 37/4. Number 6. Here we have 7, 16. So this is going to be a little more challenging in terms of the fractions, but it's not that bad. Okay, so you factor out the 7. So you get 7 times x squared. You factor out the 7 here, you got to divide by 7. So you get 16 over 7 x. Leave a space. Move the other thing to the other side, the 5 to the other side. So this -5 becomes +5. Then we take -16/7 divided by 2. We're going to square that. Now, here we have 2 in the denominator, so we're going to take the reciprocal of 2 over 1, which is 1 over 2. So that's going to be the same as -16/7 times 1 over 2. Dividing here by 2 over 1, so we're multiplying by 2 over 1. So that's -16/14 quantity squared. And you can see I can simplify that. So that'll become -7/6/8/7. So divide both those by 2, you get 8/7 squared. And now I'll actually square it. Now this is what we'll need to complete the square later. So the negatives disappears when you square it. You get 64 over 49. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 64 over 49. But what we're really adding to the left-hand side is 7 times 64 over 49. Now, you can simplify this because 49 is 7 times 7, so this becomes 64 over 7. This cancels out with 7 of those. So that's so what we're adding is 7 times 64 over 49. So we're adding that to both sides, 64/7. So now the final, well, almost final answer. 5 is going to be 35/7, because 7 times 5 is 35. So 35 divided 7 is 5. Okay, here's a final answer. It's going to be 7 times x minus 8/7 squared is equal to, so we have 35 plus 64, which is 99. 99 over 7. And there we're done. Because you see what would happen is I go the other direction. I'd multiply this, I'd square this, so I'd have x squared. You'd have -8/7 and -8/7 from the inner and the outer. That gives you -16/7. And then you'd have -8/7 times -8/7, which would be positive 64/49. So you can see how this is equal to that. And if you multiplied this out, you'd have 7 times x squared, which would be 7x squared. 7 times -16/7, the 7s would cancel out. You're back to -16. And then if you combine all these 7 times 64 over 49 and move these back to the other side, you would end up with -5. Okay, the next two, we have to factor out a negative sign. So we're going to factor out -1. We don't need to put the 1 there, we just factor out a negative sign. So the negative x squared becomes positive x squared, and the positive 4x becomes -4x. Now we don't do anything with the 7 except move it to the right hand side. Now we look at this coefficient here, -4 divided by 2, square it, that's -2 squared, which is 4. So we're adding 4 in the parentheses, but we're really subtracting 4 here on the left hand side, so we have to subtract 4 over here as well to balance this -4. So now this can be written as negative x squared, not x squared, negative x. We take this number right there, -2, square it, and that's going to be equal to -11. Okay, number 8. Factor out -4. -4. So that's going to become x squared. -4 divided by -4 is 1. And -16 divided by -4 is +4. Leave a space. Move the constant to the other side and make sure you change the sign. Take 4 divided by 2, square it. That's 2 squared, which is 4. So we add 4. But we're really adding -4 times 4, because we have to distribute this to that term that we've added inside the parentheses, so that's -16. So this is going to be -16, -12, which was in the original equation on this side is +12, so it became -12 on the other side, this one here. And then we're going to another -16. So that's going to finally, the final answer is -4 times x, go to here, +2 squared is equal to -28. And the last 3 problems. So these are all where we have both x squared and y squared. So number 9, we're going to take the x squared terms here, put those in parentheses, leave a space, take the y squared terms, put a space, move the -12 to the other side, make it positive. Okay, so all we've done is put some parentheses in there, left some space, move the constant to the other side. Okay, so we go here, -6 divided by 2 squared. It's -3 squared, which is 9. So we add 9 here. That means we have to add 9 over here. Here we have -16 divided by 2. Square it. -16 divided by 2 is -8. -8 squared is 64. So we add 64 here. So we have to add 64 over here. So this first 3 terms become a complete square. The number we use here is -3. So it's x minus 3 squared plus, and then we have -8. So it's x minus 8 squared. And then we add all the numbers up on the left-hand side, right-hand side, which is going to be 64 plus 9, which is 73, 83, 85. Now, So what this is a circle with center at 3, 8 with a radius of the square root of 85. Okay, the next two we're going to have to factor out numbers. So you can see I've got a 10 in front of the x squared and I've got a 4 in front of the y squared. So we're going to factor out 10 here. So we get 10 times x squared, divide 60 by 10, that's 6. So we get 6x, leave a space. Take the next two terms, we're going to factor out the next two terms here. We're going to factor out a 4. That leaves y squared. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 32 divided by 4 is 8. So it's going to be negative 8. Negative 8y. Leave a space. Move the other stuff to the other side. 15. Negative 15 becomes positive 15. Take 6 divided by 2. Square that. That's 3 squared, which is 9. So we add 9. But we're really adding 10 plus 9, so that's 90. Here we take negative 8, divide by 2, square it, that's negative 4 squared, which is 16. So we add 16. But we're really adding 4 times 16, which is 64. So we need to add 90 here. We need to add 64 to balance out what we're adding on the left-hand side. This becomes 10 times x squared, so I could factor it again. It's going to be x plus 3 squared. It's this number right there. Then we have plus 4 times, so this is going to be y minus 4 squared. And then on the right-hand side we have 105, 175, 179. Now for these, I'm going to ask you to divide everything by what's on the right-hand side. So you get this, and you get that. So we get 1 on the right-hand side. And then we take the reciprocal of this fraction. So it becomes 179 over 10 plus, here we have y minus 4 squared divided by 179 over 4, and that equals 1. So that's the standard form for an ellipse, because these are both positive. And these tell us something about how the length of the ellipse in the x direction and the y direction. And then the final one of them is negative here. So here we got the 2x terms, so we're going to factor out 3, the coefficient in front of x squared. We're going to divide this by 3, which is 6. So we get 6x, leave a little space. Factor out negative 6 out of here. So negative 6 divided by negative 6 is 1, so we get y squared. Divide 60 by negative 6, you'll get negative 10y. And then you move that to the other side. I should have left a space here, but I need to slide things over a little bit. Okay. So leave a little space in there, move the 10 to the right-hand side, you get negative 10. Okay. 6 divided by 2 squared is equal to 3 squared, which is equal to 9, so we add 9. But really we're adding 3 times 9, so that's 27. Let's go ahead and do it. Add 27. Over here we have negative 10 divided by 2. That number right there. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Square that, you get 25. So we add 25 here to the inside the parentheses, but really we're adding negative 6 times 25, which is going to be negative 150. So we subtract 150. So now we can rewrite it. It's 3 times x plus 3 squared minus 6 times x minus, so there's where the 3 came from. Here's the next one. Y minus 5 squared is equal to, so I've got negative 160, and that add 27 to that. So negative 660 plus 20 is negative 140, plus another 7, negative 133. Now, I'm going to divide by negative 133. So I'll have negative 3 divided by 133 times x plus 3 squared minus 6 divided by negative 123, 33 times y minus 5 squared is equal to 1. And then I'm going to take the reciprocal of this. I'm also going to make this into positive. So we'll get x plus 3 squared divided by, well, put a negative out front. So that negative we're just going to put in the numerator. And then you have 133 divided by 3. Here we have plus, because negative divided by negative is positive. We get y minus 5 squared divided by 133 divided by 6, and that equals 1. So again, this is a hyperbola. The negatives associated with the x term and the positives associated with the y term. And this, where the negative goes, depends on two things. It depends upon where the negative is to start with, and also, you know, here I had this big negative that added and made it negative in the long run. If I had, you know, if I had switched these around, then I might have gotten a different, you know, may have been positive instead of negative. Okay, so that's it for the practices.